And a great pleasure today to welcome back a man we had on when his last book came out, which was called How to Win Any Negotiation. We'll talk about that as well, but he's got a brand new one out called How to Win Any Argument. We're joined today by Robert Mayer from California. And Robert, good to talk to you again. How you been?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
Yeah, good to have a chance. And we were just talking before we went on. We had talked before. I thought it was a year ago, but you said the negotiation book has been about 4 years, but you said it's been updated, right?
Well, it's the argument book that's been updated. It's been out about 4 or 5 years. It's in 9 languages, but it's been updated. Times have changed. People are a little bit different than they were. They have different concerns, different interests, and so it's designed to actually deal with life in the new normal.
Yeah, how to win any argument without raising your voice, losing your cool, or coming to blows. Unfortunately, if you watch a lot of cable TV, those last 3 things don't always occur, or they do occur. A lot of loud voices, losing cool, and fights. So you talk about how you can do it in a more civilized way.
Right. It's actually we're using the other person's energy to win as opposed to trying to defend that energy or to confront that energy. We're actually turning the other person around.
I always wonder why that isn't taught more in maybe high school, or I guess colleges have some courses maybe in it, debating clubs. I don't know if they even have those still in high school, but how to make your point effectively without trying to scream the other guy out.
You know, they really don't. As a matter of fact, I'm a lawyer, and even in law school, it's not something that was taught. But it's interesting because the New York Times calls my style mental judo. So it's really, as you said, it's linking into the other person and using their energy to win. And the problem is that most of us who haven't been formally trained on how to deal with conflict have habits rather than techniques. And you can kind of prove that to yourself, Doug, because if you argue with the dry cleaner that ruined your shirt the same way you argue with a Ford dealer or with your teenager or with your landlord, you know that you're really arguing using habits rather than techniques. So the game is really about using the other person's energy to win, and it's just like driving a car. And, you know, before you get out of reverse, you have to go to neutral. And neutral means that you're going to start managing the other person's emotions rather than avoiding them. So that's where it all starts, and there are a number of common mistakes that can be avoided if you actually learn how to win an argument. Amongst those mistakes is that people believe that you can convince somebody acting emotionally with logic, and that's just not true. People who are emotional don't care about logic. We also believe that the more we talk, the more we're going to influence the other person. And we all know that that probably isn't true either. But when you're in the thick of things, you forget that. So what we do is we deal with impossible people by just being impossible back. We interrupt them and we raise our voice and we overgeneralize. Overgeneralizing is, hey, Doug, you always, or hey, Doug, you never. And we use disparaging terms like, you know something, Doug, you just don't understand, or Doug, what the heck is your problem? So, you know, those are things that are counterproductive, but it's something that we all do if we're not really, you know, following a winning pattern and just falling into our old habits.
I guess really what you want to do, and I know this kind of deals with salespeople. I think you've written about that before in previous books. It's almost you want a win-win situation, even though you may think the other guy's totally wrong. You want to at least make him think he's getting something out of it too, right? To try and get him at least somewhat to your side. Is that the point?
Know, you do. If you want a commitment that you think is going to be honored as opposed to just winning compliance for the moment, there has to be something in it for the other guy. So, you know, this is not a scorched earth kind of an approach where you leave them in the field as you go about your way. So, in fact, you know, it's interesting. Probably when I do talk shows with radio call-ins, the most common questions are about arguments that we all have. And the reality is that our worst arguments take place at, fill in the blank, home.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and particularly with teens. And so, we all make mistakes when we're dealing with teens. We argue using logic, and we make threats that we really don't want to carry out, or we'll give up and provide incentives to win the argument, but incentives don't produce good study habits. Or we forget that we're not interested in compliance as much as commitment, and we start strong-arming. And so those are the mistakes that just exacerbate a situation, and everything spins out of control and gets worse. So all of this starts with really having a cool head, being in control of how you will be. And the whole first chapter is, hey, how do you control how you will be,
right,
as opposed to just being totally reactive, which is normally what happens. So from there you go on to build what we call a consent zone, which is giving the other person kind of a comfort level in dealing with you. And when I say a comfort level, the other person has to feel comfortable with what you're saying, because unless they feel comfortable with what you're saying, you're not going to believe what you're saying.
Yeah, it's good advice there. You talk about particularly family arguments. Oftentimes, the father will say, "Well, do it because I say so," but that doesn't always work.
And then, just sort of going down the road. I live in Los Angeles, and nobody wants to drive in Los Angeles anymore. So it takes forever just to go a few blocks. So then you have to decide if you're going to win an argument with somebody, do you want to do what's efficient or what's effective? Well, what's efficient is to pick up the phone or to send an email, but that's not necessarily the most effective way of winning an argument. And so, we don't really consider, the method that we're going to use to win, whether it's going to be a letter or whether it's going to be a fax or an email or a phone call or just plain getting in that car and sitting down with the other person.
You do have a chapter in the book about winning the war of words in writing, so sometimes that is a more effective way to do it, right? Through an email or a letter, right?
Yes and no. If the writing is an email, it's ineffective because there's no human comfort level that's associated with an email. Emails are brief, they're to the point, and so
they can be erased.
That's great if you're have an inquiry or something. But if you're really in a dispute, emails seldom work. On the other hand, the problem with a lengthy letter is you don't know if it's going to get read, and if it's going to get read, whether it's going to be understood. And so, you have to be able to know how to write a letter, or to have a letter sent by fax, as opposed to just a short email. And that's a chapter in itself. How do you write persuasively so you'll be read, and so that it'll be understood as well as just being read.
Now, what happens, Robert, and this is probably something you hope for, everybody reads your book, and you're arguing with somebody else that has read your book. How do you handle that?
Oh, my God, that's the worst kind of adversary, is somebody that knows the secret. That's a great question, right?
Maybe you'll just both agree without saying anything and walk away.
I give up. You've read the book. How can I possibly win? But we just hold a draw right now.
But it'll make things a lot quieter.
It'll make quieter and easier. You're right.
Well, it really is a great book. It's some, the chapters are easy to read and right to the point, and I think that's the point of any good how-to type of book. It's called How to Win Any Argument. We've been talking with Robert Mayer today. And Robert, give out your website. People can get a hold of you and the book.
As a matter of fact, if they want to speak preview, the website is thewaytowin.net.
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 Great, and let's not make it 4 years since we talk again, Robert. I thought it was more recently, but we'll do it again. Thanks for being with us today.
Okay. Thanks so much, Doug.